Hello, I'm Andrew Pritchard. Thank you for watching today's Corn Belt Regional Forecast, brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. We'll start off looking at the satellite picture as the sun comes up on this Tuesday morning, and our next weather system is already visible, churning away down there across the southwest. That's going to merge with another piece of upper-level energy coming in from the Pacific Northwest and create one big storm system over the central United States. Here you can see a look at that. When we look at the European forecast here, we're looking at 500 millibar vorticity. Here you see this feature off the Pacific Northwest and the very obvious upper level wave over the southwest. And we play this out over the next day or so, and there you see the two features kind of come together there over the Intermountain West, with a very large cyclone emerging over the Central Plains. And for meteorologists and weather enthusiasts, that's going to lead to some meteorological eye candy as this thing gets going. We're looking at, again, the European model's simulated satellite picture here, the simulated infrared satellite. And there we see this major storm system taking shape with that classic comma shape over the central United States. And that means blizzard conditions to the north, rain and thunderstorms off to the south, and overall just unsettled weather across the central United States over the next 24 to 48 hours. So let's go ahead and let's dive in. We've already got a very colorful hazards map from the National Weather Service here. The blue shading across the northern plains there where we have winter storm watches. We've got some red shading there across parts of South Dakota, Nebraska, and northeastern Colorado where a blizzard warning is already in place. Green shading from central Kansas up through Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, and western Wisconsin is where we have a flood watch in place. And that's because we got a lot of snow on the ground. We're going to be in the warm sector on this one with rain coming in. So snow melt with rain falling on top of it. The process has begun. I think we'll be talking about this flood risk for several weeks, if not longer, as we head into the spring. We've also got high wind advisories and high wind watches across parts of the Central Plains as well, dealing with some gusty winds. And we've got some severe weather to talk about as well, which we'll address in just a moment. So let's take a look at the high-resolution NAM model's precipitation type forecast and just get an idea of what's going on here. Over the next 60 hours, this will get us through to Thursday evening. And here we see it, this major storm system taking shape over the Central Plains. Really classic, just textbook look. You know, we see this just once every few years, you know, where we see this incredible evolution where it's just, again, a textbook picture. But here you see on the north side, this is where we've got the heavy snow across the northern plains. It looks like the upper Midwest, which has just been hammered by heavy snow over the last few weeks, is going to get a break from this one. We've seen the last few storms track a bit more easterly, and that's brought the heavy snow through the upper Midwest. But with this storm system really deepening, the strongest storm systems, they tend to kind of lift north and track a little bit further to the west, and so this one is kind of breaking the mold, lifting a little bit further north, and that's bringing the snow across the northern plains there to an area that has been spared, not by the cold temperatures, but we've seen the heavy snow track a little bit further east across parts of, say, Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, and in that's area. In that area, we're going to again be seeing the warm sector, warmer air above freezing, so snow melt with heavy rain falling on top of that. And that's what leads to the flood risk in parts of the upper Midwest now. If you look a bit further south even, now across parts of especially the Mid-South and into the Southeast, we're talking about severe weather from Nebraska across to the Ohio River Valley, but a threat we'll have to talk about on Thursday across parts of the Mid-Mississippi Valley as well. So this thing's bringing everything. I think I mentioned the winds, but if I haven't, it's going to be very blustery for about the entire Corn Belt Wednesday and Thursday. And in parts of the western corn, or the eastern Corn Belt, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio, we're going to be warming up nicely over the next couple of days. So let's kind of dive in. Let's break it down. We'll talk about the snow first. On the left, you got the accumulated snowfall forecast from the high-resolution NAM model, and on the right, we got the same thing here, the precipitation type forecast that we just watched. We'll play this out. We're into Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon, and now Wednesday night. That's when we see this heavy snow falling across the northern plains here again. We'll step through this a little bit at a time. Let me go ahead and play one more time. Go ahead and pause. I'm going to get it right here. That button is little. Here we go. All right, so we are into Tuesday night now, about 7 p.m. this evening. We've got rain falling across parts of the central United States, maybe some light rain across the mid and upper Mississippi Valley. But as we get going into the morning on Wednesday, that's when we really see the main storm system beginning to organize over the central plains. We'll get into about noon on Wednesday afternoon, and that's when we really see the cyclone taking shape, with heavy snow now falling in parts of the high plains from Wyoming into South Dakota, far western Nebraska. We'll play this out a little bit further into Wednesday evening now, 7 p.m. on Wednesday evening. We've got some rain activity moving through the mid-Mississippi Valley, heavy rain falling across the upper Midwest, heavy snow falling now across much of the Dakotas, and again in the high plains, and this is where the gusty winds are going to combine with that heavy snow to create blizzard conditions where we've got the blizzard warnings already in effect. We may see that expand further north into parts of the Dakotas as well. But at the very least, Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening, just treacherous whiteout conditions expected in this area across much of the North Dakota, at least the western half of South Dakota, if not more, getting into parts of Wyoming and Montana, which is, certainly part of the western region, but just awful winter conditions expected late in the day Wednesday into Thursday morning across this region. How much snow are we expecting? Well, again, the heaviest snow across the northern plains with this one, about 12 to 18 inches across northwestern Nebraska, central South Dakota, and western South Dakota, getting into central and eastern North Dakota, and then the very far northwestern corner of Minnesota getting in on that snow as well, about 6 to 8 inches expected there. So again, the last few systems, we've seen that heaviest snow falling in parts of Minnesota and Wisconsin and Iowa. We're going to shift it a little bit further west and north with this one, with that heavy snow falling across the high plains and the northern plains Wednesday into Thursday. Let's shift to the warm sector now. We'll talk about the severe weather threat. We're looking at the day 2 severe weather outlook. This is for Wednesday, and then the day 3 for Thursday. And so Wednesday, we're talking about a marginal risk for severe thunderstorms in parts of the Missouri Boot Heel, southeastern Missouri, getting into southern Illinois. It's on Thursday that we see that severe weather threat lift a little bit further north into parts of Illinois and Indiana, maybe far western Ohio, but then Kentucky and Tennessee getting in on that as well. We'll break that down again here similarly to the way that we did the winter weather threat. On the left, we're looking at instability, the warm, humid air that provides the fuel for thunderstorms to develop and intensify to potentially severe levels. With a dynamic storm system like this, and with most of the very powerful storm systems we get in the spring, there's no shortage of wind shear. We need, 2 ingredients here, generally speaking, to get severe thunderstorms. We need instability, we need the fuel, the warm, humid air, and then that gets us our thunderstorms developing. But to take those and create severe thunderstorms, the long-lived, severe weather-producing thunderstorms, we need wind shear, the changing of wind direction and wind speed with height as you head up in the atmosphere. And a powerful storm system like this, oftentimes no shortage of wind shear. It's a question of, are we going to have enough instability, enough fuel for those? It's late winter, early spring, depending on how you look at it here. And so it's tough to draw the really warm and humid air up here to the Midwest this time of year. And that's why, we're getting close to the season, but March is still kind of right on that cusp there where the threat is a little bit conditional on getting enough heating, enough instability there. So let's play it out. Let's take a look at this day by day. I'm going to go ahead and pause it and walk through because we've got a severe weather threat today in the far southwest. We're talking Nebraska and Texas, so well away from the Corn Belt, displaced from our region here. But that's where this thing is getting organized. That's where we see the first round of intense thunderstorms. Now that's going to develop into a squall line, a long line of thunderstorms, perhaps producing gusty winds, perhaps embedded tornadoes within that as it moves across parts of Texas or the entire state of Texas. This would be Tuesday night, getting into Wednesday morning. Now we move into the day on Wednesday, and that's when, you remember, we saw a low risk for severe weather across parts of the Mid-South, getting into southeastern Missouri, maybe southern Illinois. The Wednesday severe weather threat doesn't concern me quite as much as the potential on Thursday, and here's the reason why. We've got a line of showers, maybe some embedded thunderstorms moving through this area, but we're into the peak heating of the late afternoon and the late evening when we would expect severe weather to be at its peak. And again, instability very low across this area. So again, plenty of wind shear, but it just doesn't look like we've got quite enough instability, enough warm and humid air there to mix in with that, to where I think we're going to be looking at mostly rain with embedded thunderstorms in there and maybe an isolated strong to severe thunderstorm. But we keep moving ahead now. We are into Wednesday night. We're watching an area, again, of rain, perhaps embedded thunderstorms moving into parts of eastern Illinois, western Indiana, stretching down along the lower Mississippi Valley into Kentucky, Tennessee, and Mississippi. We go into the day on Thursday now. We're at about 9 o'clock in the morning, and we're already seeing now the development of an unstable air mass. And the way that we're doing that is by lifting, advecting that very warm, humid air. It's going to be Thursday morning. We'll be in the 60s across parts of central Illinois with dew points in the middle 50s, and that is unseasonably warm and humid for this time of year. But we've also got very, very cold air, about 15 to 20,000 feet above our head. And we talk about instability and bringing in warm, humid air, but you want to do that underneath very cold air at the top. The imbalance between the warm and humid air down at the ground with the cold air, again, 15 to 20,000 feet above our heads. That warm, humid air wants to rise and lift into thunderstorms and potentially severe thunderstorms. And again, remember, we have plenty of wind shear with this storm system. It's a question of, do we have the instability? We move forward a little bit more into the day on Thursday. We're now into the early afternoon, and at this point, the high-resolution NAM model is placing a fairly unstable air mass for this time of year across parts of Illinois, western Indiana, maybe even as far north as southern Wisconsin, which is just unusual this time of year, but this is an unusual storm system as well. And so while it's not common to be talking about potential severe thunderstorms in areas as far north as northern Illinois and maybe southern Wisconsin, we're not often talking about a storm system of this caliber. So it's something we have to watch very closely as we head through the day on Thursday. Now we move a little bit further, Thursday afternoon into Thursday evening. The instability beginning to fade as the day goes on. We're also seeing an increase in coverage here of rain and thunderstorms. And so you introduce more cloud cover, more rain, and that's going to really squash the heating there. That doesn't lend to a good heating, and that's going to lead to a decrease in the instability. We'll see the severe weather threat fade rather quickly as we head into the evening on Thursday. And now we can zoom in just a tiny bit here, just take one more quick look as this thing plays out. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the beginning. We're at about noon on Thursday afternoon now, and that's where you see this unstable air mass from far southern Wisconsin getting into the state of Illinois, and it would be in this area. There's kind of two areas I'd be concerned about, maybe far southern Wisconsin into northern Illinois, seeing a couple strong to potentially severe thunderstorms in this area, and then another line potentially developing here from, say, the Illinois and Indiana border, getting into Kentucky and Tennessee. And again, as that begins to rapidly move to the east and the northeast, that's where I think we'll see the chance for perhaps a few thunderstorms producing damaging winds, maybe some large hail. And then again, if we see enough instability here, the threat will exist for a few tornadoes across parts of Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, and Tennessee on Thursday afternoon and Thursday evening. So again, just something to be aware of. It's not a sure thing, slam dunk. We're not looking at a widespread severe weather outbreak, I don't think, at this point. If that changes, of course, we'll let you know. But it's something to watch, and the threat is definitely there for a couple intense thunderstorms across the Midwest on Thursday. Here's one look. We'll look upstairs at the wind shear here just to drive it home. And again, that jet streak across parts of Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana. We've got winds, again, about 15,000 feet above our heads, roaring at 100 miles per hour out of the southwest. And then you get southeasterly winds at the surface here, also gusty, but at about 20 to 30 miles per hour. And there you've got that turning from southeast at the surface, southwest above our heads, and the change in the wind speeds from 30 miles per hour, say about that at the ground, to 100 miles per hour as you head several thousand feet above our heads. So should we get enough instability? The other needed factors there, the wind shear is there to take these thunderstorms and bring them to potentially severe levels on Thursday. I mentioned the wind gusts, but I want to go ahead and just play this loop over the next 60 hours going through Wednesday now into Thursday, and that's where you see the very gusty winds traveling across the central United States with this low pressure system. Let's go ahead and just kind of once more step through this. We're at Wednesday afternoon now. We see gusty winds across much of the central United States, not quite making it to the eastern Corn Belt yet, but as we get into Wednesday night into Thursday morning, that's where we're seeing winds gusting now 30 to 40 miles per hour, perhaps close to 50 miles per hour across the entire central and eastern Corn Belt. As you head over to the west on the backside here where, we've got fresh snowfall, we've got colder air working in here, some of these higher level or higher terrain areas of Colorado and Nebraska, possibly gusting 60 to 80 miles per hour. And that's not from a thunderstorm. We're talking just, synoptic winds as a result of this low pressure system. So just an incredible storm system. And I know I'm running long here, but just there's a lot to talk about, and it's going to be a wild week no matter where you live in the Corn Belt. Total precipitation, a lot falling across the central United States here, and it falls in a couple different ways. A lot of that heavy snow falling across the northern plains, that's still going to be liquid. That's going to have to melt at some point here as we head into the spring. And then parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa, you're getting in on rain. You're spared the snow at this point, but that's an inch of rain that's falling on top of about 20 or so inches of snow that's already on the ground in some of these places. So just we're getting a jump start on the flooding situation, I think, as we head into the spring. And then again, this is kind of old news, another swath of heavy rain falling across parts of the Mid-South, Kentucky, and Tennessee. Now our temperatures, really quickly to finish up here, I mentioned we're going to be warming up nicely in parts of the central and eastern Corn Belt. These are our high temperatures on Wednesday. 60s across Minnesota, don't you wish, across Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio there. Warmer still in those areas that we head into the day on Thursday, with 70s perhaps in parts of Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. But then look at the cold air coming in on the backside. We do have that. But you'll notice we're getting a little more seasonally appropriate with these cold air outbreaks on the backside of these storm systems, to where the northern plains, even with the fresh snowpack, will still see high temperatures in the 20s and 30s on Friday and Saturday. And then areas here across the central U.S., the central Corn Belt, eastern Corn Belt, where that cold air has moved in already by the weekend, we're starting to moderate with Saturday high temperatures back into the 40s and the 50s across the central Corn Belt. And then on Sunday here, we're getting into Monday, already back to the 50s across the central and the eastern Corn Belt. So cold air does follow on this one, but we moderate slightly, and I think we'll moderate as we head into the last week of March, bringing in a little bit warmer weather, a little bit drier weather, at least for the next week or so following the storm system, which is good news. Now, I want to mention, just as we wrap up here, if you haven't already, set up yourself an account at nutrienagsolutions.com. It's free. You don't have to be a customer there. Set up an account with an email address and a password. And once you do that, you can log in at my.nutrienagsolutions.com, and this will be your welcome screen. You can click that button there that says Weather Story, and that's going to take you to this page where you can get all this content that Eric and I are putting out. You'll have Eric's videos on Monday and Thursday, his long-range forecast videos, and then Tuesday and Friday you can catch these regional forecasts just like this. So if you haven't, set up an account now so you can follow along as we head into the growing season. As always, Eric will have an in-depth look at the next 1 to 2 weeks in our Thursday morning ag forecast video, and you can catch your next regional forecast right here on Friday. Have a great day.